It's an honor to have the kind presence of our eminent panelists, respected keynote speaker, sir, diligent faculty members, and all the ultra-talented, enthusiastic students present here. As Albert Hubbard said, one machine can do the work of 50 ordinary men. No machine can do the work of one extraordinary man. With these words in mind, on behalf of IIM Amritsar, I, Jasdeep Singh, along with Anjali Singhania, welcome you all to the 7th edition of IIM Amritsar's HR Conclave, Yukti'.
I would now like to request our eminent panelists, respected keynote speaker, and our Dean of Academics to come up on the stage and lighten the lamp of knowledge. Thank you, sir, ma'am, for your kind presence on this stage. Next, let us welcome on stage our Dean of Academics, Professor Mahima Gupta, ma'am, to address the audience.
Dear panelists, students, faculty, and staff of IIM Amritsar, on behalf of Director IIM Amritsar, Professor Nagarajan Ramamurthy, I welcome you all to the 7th Annual HR Conclave, Yukti'. Indeed, the Institute has seen high programmatic growth and meaningful industry connections over the years with stellar leadership, committed faculty, enterprising students, alums, and strong industry support. The theme for both the panels on today's conclave point towards the changes which are happening around us and more specifically in our workplaces. The pandemic posited many questions and thereby presented an opportunity to find frameworks and solutions to deal with many such disruptions that may be lurking around the corner. I look forward to hearing from the people dealing with these issues day in and day out in their workplaces. Thank you once again for being here with us. My best wishes to the organizing team for a great event ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for those encouraging words. We would now like to set the conclave in motion by introducing today's theme, that is, employee experience, moving back from the ZOOMbie land. This theme will explore the changes an employee and organization had to undergo during the pandemic and how the companies are now moving back to the pre-pandemic times. Now we will have a short presentation by Mr. Shakti Singh and Torsha Devedi from MBA 08 batch on the conclave theme.
We will be presenting and discussing on the theme, Employee Experience Moving Back from ZOOMbie Land. Employee experience encapsulates what people observe and encounter over the course of their tenure at an organization. Every company invests in consumer experience, and as organizations increasingly realize that their people are their greatest assets, they have started investing in the employee experience as well. Creating new practices provides true flexibility to the employees by offering them a choice between various work arrangements. Having necessary infrastructure is crucial for hybrid work model to succeed. Organizations need to invest in collaborative workspaces. Now I would like to hand over the presentation to my teammate Shakti.
As employees return to on-site work, employers can evolve operating models and workplace culture to provide more flexibility to employees, keeping in mind their mental health. Close to 2/3 of all employees, 62% to be exact, say that additional time off work could help alleviate stress related to returning to on-site work. Salesforce considers its employees to be its greatest assets. Therefore, it works consciously to provide better health and well-being for them. The 9-to-5 work hour is dead, and the employee experience is more than ping-pong tables and snacks. And lastly, but maybe the most important aspect of all, companies need to make sure that employees don't feel isolated or disconnected from the organization. HRs need to safeguard their employees with a strong focus on well-being, health, and safety. If implemented correctly, these 6 core aspects and values will help companies not only retain employees, but will have them working for the organization with a higher sense of morale and satisfaction moving on from ZOOMbie land.
Now, allow me to introduce you to the keynote speaker of today's conclave, Dr. Augustus Azaria.
Good morning, friends. Let's take a look at what happened first, all right? And to me, I can't ignore the elephant in the room, which is the pandemic. It didn't really strike us as to what needs to be done. It took us by surprise. But the storm hit us nevertheless. And what happened when the storm hit us is that we got into our individual boats. And we started fighting the storm. And as we were surviving the storm, all those learnings that we had were coming to fore. And some new lessons were also learned. Okay, we learned the lesson to be adaptable. We learned how to be resilient. So if something else hits us, God forbid, how can we manage that? We learned to take risks. Innovation. Because in spite of no office being there, we collaborated across. Because collaboration fosters innovation. Diversity and inclusiveness should be the bedrock on which businesses continue to sustain themselves. So as you go into the workforce, remember, it's not how that person looks or what language they speak, but it's how we include them in our journey to make this planet a smarter and a better place. With that, my friends, thank you so much for having me here. God bless you all.
Thank you, sir. That was a very enlightening address. I'm sure the students present here feel likewise and were able to gain rich insights from you.
We would now like to steer the conclave by inviting the panelists for the discussion. I would request Mr. Amit Chincholika, sir, to take the helm of conclave and commence today's discussion.
Thank you. Again, good morning. Pleasure and a privilege to be here amongst all of you. We've had the chance to kind of talk to each other a little bit. While we've largely agreed on some things, we've agreed to disagree on some. So the whole idea is to make sure that the only way that you can have a meaningful conversation or a meaningful debate is when there are different points of view. We would encourage you to think about what is it that we are conversing, the conversation that we are having, questions, anything that you have in mind. Please understand, like Voltaire said, there is no such thing as a stupid question, right? And we've agreed amongst ourselves that if there's something that we can't answer, we will probably come back and hire you. Yeah. So on that note, in your assessment, let me start with you, Vikas. How have you seen employee expectations change over the last couple of years? Since we are talking of employee experience, experience is a function of expectation, right? So how have you seen that change and evolve over the last couple of years in your experience that you've had?
So to answer your question, I think I'm not going to get into the whole expectation bit of how the Gen Zs, etc., are coming in, because I think it's universal. So yesterday I was here for a while. I spoke to this group of people who are running startups. And in the same group, there was this one CEO of an organization in Amritsar, which employs about 5,000 people. And he comes out and says, hey, listen, Vikas, I'm facing this big problem of new guard versus old guard. Where, there are these people who are coming in, which is the Gen Z and all of them. And then there's this old folks who are staying. And on top of that, I bring in this whole hybrid kind of a setup. And now this old guard expects, people to be switching on their videos, staying available on beck and call, whereas there's a lot of resistance there. And then the people say, hey, listen, why do you want to see my face? I'm here, I'm talking, why do you want me to switch on the video? And that's where the whole Zoom fatigue and all of that kind of comes in. I think there are a lot of these real life challenges which are emerging.
Perfect, thanks Vikas. Shall it be interesting to hear from you, what is it that you felt the last couple of years looked like from an employee expectations perspective? What did you see here?
So I always say this when people talk about experience, is just like beauty lies in the eyes of the beholder, experience lies in the eyes of the person who's going through that. In my personal experience, I think this whole hype around generations and millennials is just irrelevant. At its core, what do human beings want? Right? Everybody wants respect. Everybody wants to be included. Everybody wants to be seen and heard, right? It could be a janitor, it could be a security guard, it could be the CEO, it could be a HR manager. It could be the guy who's running the orders for that day. It could be anyone. Fundamentally, our emotions are just the same. The acceptance that work can happen even when you can't see your people clocking in at 9 in the morning and clocking out at 5 is a huge thing. For the longest time, people and companies that gave flexibility thought the guy who's asking for work from home is actually taking a chutti and putting a proxy of work, right? And I think the shift has been tremendous because unfortunately, those same leaders didn't have a choice. They had to get work done. And they unfortunately had to trust the fact that they will do it. So now coming in the context of experience, to me, if you look at from the lens of an average employee, even a leader running a team of 100 people delivering to the company a $5 million revenue is also an employee, right? But let's see what happened to all of us. For an average employee who is a fresher, they want to be back in a place where they can have social connections. And I think that is the core. So as organizations, are you creating those moments of truth which allows people to connect, build network, has a relationship where I don't just learn from books. As leaders, we are all meaning makers. So when you talk about experience and you cannot make meaning through that experience, I don't want to be there. We might be 2 decades working now, but the fact of the matter is the human emotions stay the same. So for us also, our life goals have suddenly accelerated. Suddenly, things which we thought we will do when we are 50 or 60, we're just asking ourselves because death became real to us last year, right? There is nobody, I'm sure nobody in this room has been left unaffected. We had colleagues we lost, young colleagues with young kids, and it affected us. Suddenly, you won't see them when you're back in office at the desk that you were used to, just walking across the bay and meet them. And it's real. So suddenly you ask yourself, what am I doing here? Right? What matters to me? So when we talk about experiences of people, as organizations, we now have to create forums where people can come and express and then see, can I make meaning out of what the larger purpose of the organization that I am serving today? And then if that purpose is not meeting my life goals, then why not?
A very interesting perspective, Shalu. I'd like to get your perspective on this, Sajad, which is, do you see managers, particularly though a lot who've, kind of grown up in the old school world, if you will, being amenable to these ideas? Is there the sense of trust or lack of it that kind of comes through?
So now we'll move back to the first part, just like the theme. If you look at the employee approach that HRs usually take, it was all about their utility first, right? Then we moved to productivity. Then we started talking about engagement, and now we are talking about experiences. So what is driving all of this, in my opinion, are 3 things, right? One is the technology for sure, what we have just seen. The other bit is mobility, because people are working in different positions, and today I can work with my phone. 80% of my work, I can do it with my phone, right? The third is the millennials or the Gen Zs that will come about, and their expectations are completely different. So when we talk about managers, I think they also need to know the difference in which how employees are going to work in the hybrid model. I read a very nice report by Gartner, and they said every organization needs to decide where they are going to work and how they are going to work. So when they say where, is it co-located or distributed? And how part is synchronous or asynchronous. So managers need to think about their workforce in that fashion, and then they will be able to take appropriate steps.
The big thing that we are about HR is that we tend to sometimes forget that we are employees as well, right? So can you share maybe one experience that you had when you were an employee, positive or otherwise, that changed the way you perceive the company or the employee experience that you had as a result? One personal nugget.
Let me share something. It's pretty personal, but at the same time, as an employee, I would say it's one experience which still stays in my heart. It was a few years back, the same month of August, coincidentally, and I underwent a bit of a personal tragedy in my family, and I had joined that organization pretty new at that point of time, not had enough leaves, and I was not in the best of zones at that, at that moment. And my manager, just called me and said, Amit, you take how many days you want to get back, no pressures, and wrote a mail to everybody else in the group. Nobody will reach out to Amit till the time Amit decides to come back. Now that defines, as the entire concept of empathy, number one. That's a real empathy, I would say. When you look at it, in terms of you really feel for the person. And I think that's something which I've learned and it has really stayed with me since then.
People may forget what you said, people may forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. And finally, you really don't know people till you really don't know people. So, ladies and gentlemen, employee experience, when enabled by tech, put together by processes, run robustly for a variety of people, finally comes down to the principle of n is equal to 1, which is really governed from the heart. So, at the end of it, as we are coming back from ZOOMbie land, please remember that having a heart in everything you do is actually what will make things happen. Sometimes you may be in minority, you may be in majority, it doesn't matter. Because always remember, majority is for democracies to form governments. But otherwise, effectively, majority always drives mediocrity. So dare to be different. Thank you very much for your patience, ladies and gentlemen. A big hand for all our lovely panelists here. So hopefully, it was as interesting for you as it was engaging for us. But happy to have a set of questions or anything that you'd like to us to respond to as well.
So through the conversation, we touched multiple points upon the fact that sectoral differences mandate a mix of policies and modus operandi. So sir, with regard to manufacturing, can you share an anecdote or any evidence that tools like sentiment analysis have aided aligning employee values with the company strategy?
Okay, great. Hey, thanks for that question. That's a good one. Something that we did, and I'm sure the other colleagues of mine have as well, is gamifying the whole performance within a manufacturing board. It's a very simple one, done and dusted, but still has a lot of value. So you put up these leaderboards, right? And you say, hey, listen, so-and-so supervisor and team are at X percentage output and a comparison between the others. Now, the reason we did that, now this was the end product, but the reason we did that was that a lot of our folks were giving us a feedback saying that, hey, listen, where do we contribute and what our contribution really leads to in the whole value chain is something that we don't even get to see. You don't bother telling that about us because we're one of those worker bee class, who's just coming in, following SOPs day in and day out, delivering and moving out. But where do we really make an impact? So that whole stream was then put up on a screen for them to see. And of course, initially we had to do some trainings, helping them understand how do you interpret these scores, blah, blah, blah. But, we've got better at that. So that's something that I think a lot of organizations have also done it. I mean, we also did it learning from somewhere else. But this is something that has worked well for us to ensure that the gamifying of, productivity, etc. happens. And that's an action out of the listening in the manufacturing setup. Hope that answers your question.
We would like to extend our heartfelt thanks to all the panelists and speakers for responding to all the questions with such alacrity.
Respected panelists, keynote speakers, faculty members, NDTV team, and my dear peers. I would like to propose a hearty word of thanks to all the panelists and our respected keynote speaker for gracing this event with their presence and making this conclave a resounding success. Last but not the least, I'd like to thank the students of Indian Institute of Management, Amritsar, for their constant support, patience, and engagement. Without you all, this event would not have been possible. Once again, thank you all.
Indian Institute of Management, Amritsar, in a short span of 7 years, has really grown in leaps and bounds. This has all been possible because of the visionary leadership by our director, Professor Nagarajan Ramamurthy, and an expert pool of faculty members who are really striving hard to bring in value for all the stakeholders in and around Punjab and also globally. In this short span, we have not only increased our batch strength in our flagship MBA program, but we have also added 2 new MBA programs in MBA in Business Analytics and MBA in HR. Other than this, we have also launched certain short-term programs for the working professionals so that they can meet their upskilling needs, specifically in the area of creativity and design thinking, data analytics, strategic leadership, and many others. With this year, we are also thinking of launching an executive MBA program in the area of Delhi NCR, specifically catering to the audience in the north. Other than this, IIM Amritsar is also forging collaborative partnerships with other national institute of importance like IIT Ropar and NIT Jalandhar, and we are planning to launch some master's program in the field of data science and data analytics. With all these new programs that we are adding to our portfolio of programs, whether it is for early professionals or senior leadership, we are all trying to forge new programs and also trying to be true to the mission of IIM Amritsar, which is igniting new possibilities every now and then. We really look forward for our corporate partners to really come on board and help us taking our mission ahead in time.